what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the 10-year YouTube celebration. Today is day 25. Yesterday on day 24, I talked all about Deadlock Pro Wrestling and the content I made about their early life as an indie company. And today's episode is going to be all about my very weird, very complicated history with general manager modes in the WWE Games, specifically wanting to talk about, obviously, with the nature of the series being the stuff that I've tried to do content on and that I have done content on. So GM mode, in case some of you don't know, like, I don't know why you'd be watching this and watching me if you don't know what GM mode is, but GM mode is literally, in the sake of the wrestling games, it's quite literally, the game will give you, like, it used to be one of two shows before SVR 08, where it was one of three, and it was Raw, SmackDown, and then SVR was ECW, and then you had your own titles. You could either, draft your own roster or take the preset roster of the game. Most people just draft their own roster because, I don't know. I literally don't know anyone who's ever played GM mode and just used the default roster. That just feels weird. But it is an option. It's always been an option, if you so choose to do that. Because I want to say, again, I don't really like the current games, but I will talk about some of their GM modes as well. But I want to say it's even an option there. I'm less familiar because I just don't really like the current games, so, yeah. But yeah, so, and then, you're the general manager, the GM, and you go through, you book through an entire year, except for the current games, 22 through 24, that is a very set time period they have for you, but back in the original GM modes for the games. And I want to say this still applies to any other GM, owner, mode, whatever, in other sports games as well. It's still like you're booking like an entire calendar year, and then like you go through an off season for the sports games. WWE, you just kind of start over and you do like another draft, but you might get like a little perk or something that's like, oh hey, you can like save this one person on your roster from being drafted or whatever. Because I want to say that's the thing in SVR 08 for sure. I don't remember if it was the thing in 06 or 07. But yeah, you just start booking. You get to book an entire calendar year was the whole idea, the whole appeal. You can make your roster, do trades with the other shows involved. Crown your champions, actually set up rivalries, and as you progress through those rivalries, if you keep them going, eventually, you can go from, okay, the fans like this, 1 thumbs up, to, oh, hey, the fans really like this, 2 thumbs up. Or you can either book it poorly and the crowd will turn on it, thumbs down, or you can get that always illustrious 3 thumbs up. I don't have 3 thumbs, obviously, so just imagine there's a 3rd thumb there. But yeah, you can get the 3 thumbs up. That means, like, this is the best the rivalry can do. Everyone loves it. And you probably should pay it off at some point soon to get the most out of it. That was always the goal. You just, keep going through the motions there until you get to a point where you want to stop. And normally most people end up stopping after a year, but the GM modes always let you continue after a year as well. But from what I know, what I've seen, and what I've played myself, most people seem to just stop after a year. And yeah, so that's the general idea of GM mode. And it's a mode that I didn't grow up playing, actually, because I didn't start playing wrestling games until I was 10, actually. And my first game was SVR 2010. And obviously GM mode wasn't in that game, and it wasn't around. So it wasn't a thing for me until I got super into watching wrestling content on YouTube in 2012. Actually, I got into watching wrestling content on YouTube before 2012, but in later 2012, I got really into the wrestling game content specifically, and I found Tabimu, who at the time was still doing his original SVR 08 GM mode. And, like, I loved it a lot. It was super cool, and that was the first thing that I ever got, like, super, like, into on YouTube as a platform. So I love that series. it'll always have a very special place in my heart. And that's where I learned, oh hey, you know, this game that, you know, I want to say I owned at the time, but like I had never really put any time into, has this mode, GM mode. I've never played it, I never really heard about it, and then I kind of like just fell in love with the idea of it, and then I eventually started playing it myself, putting time into it, and somehow throughout all of that, I'll be honest, I have never actually finished a full year in SVROH GM mode. I have in 06 and 07. Never 08, though. Which I always find funny to think about, but that is a thing. But yeah, you know, like I said, I just started putting more time into it, kept playing it, and got SVR6 and 07 and started playing those as well. I actually already would have had 07 for sure, probably 06 as well. So just, you know, started playing them even more than I already was, and then, got really into GM mode through that as well. And funny enough, little side note here, probably my favorite iteration of GM mode is actually the first one in 06. I don't know what it is. I love the foundation that they created for 06's GM mode. I love everything there. And I love that it also gives you just a little bit more freedom than even 07 and especially 08 and like the current game's GM mode as well. So it feels like just the perfect all-around mode. And you don't have like some of the weirder limitations that they end up bringing in after 06 as well. And that's part of why I love 06 GM mode more, though I know people swear by 07's. Also, 06 GM mode gets points for if you play it 2-player. If you play it multiplayer, it's not broken like 07's GM mode is. And again, I still don't know why 07's GM mode is broken. I don't know how that would have ever got past testing. You would think that they would have QA tested that. But I mean, the dev time obviously would have been really short, so maybe it just didn't come up. Maybe they didn't have time to fix it. I don't know. But yeah, so SVR07's GM mode multiplayer is broken. And you basically just have to sim through everything. Otherwise, you'll play a match and like it just won't count. It won't be finished, technically, even though you finished it and got a result. But regardless, again, that's my thoughts on GM mode and the basic idea of it as I started rambling and going on tangents there for a little bit. So the first time I ever tried to record a GM mode would have been through SVR08, and it would have been in 2015, my second year of making content. I was running a series on SmackDown, or controlling SmackDown, and I got all the way up until the first SmackDown pay-per-view, recorded that, and because of both copyright issues and I want to say probably some footage getting corrupted issues as well, because I was recording everything with my phone at the time, so footage was easier to get corrupted. That might have been issue. That might have just been mainly an issue later with like the original universe mode, but it might have happened here as well. But through probably that, along with, like I said, the copyright issues that I just didn't understand at the time at all, I eventually just stopped after that first SmackDown pay-per-view, Judgment Day, and deleted all the videos, I think. I don't know when I deleted all of them. I know I ended up deleting all of them. I think I did it really quickly after to just get rid of all the copyright claims on the videos. And then that's eventually where the original universe mode was created. Was through that. And that was a series, at the time, I actually did really like a lot. Funny enough. I do remember some things specifically about it. Not very much at this point, because it's been so long. I only did like a month and a half or whatever it was in-game calendar wise. So yeah, I don't know. But that was the first time I ever did one. It didn't last very long, obviously, just because of issues that I had with making the videos that I didn't know how to rectify. I had no idea what I was doing at the time. Eventually, a little bit later, I would start another SVR08 GM mode on controlling Raw, and that also wouldn't really go anywhere. That one, not even for copyright issues or anything, funny enough. For some reason, I just didn't ever continue it, you know? And I don't know why, I didn't. So, yeah. And that one, I don't even know if I got to the first pay-per-view, if I'm being honest. I did a few weeks and then just cut it. So yeah, that one didn't really go anywhere. And then and then I would have tried to start a multiplayer GM mode when so this was when I was still living back down south. For that year, my family moved back down there. So I was texting Tyson, and this was the early stages of trying to see if I could get him involved on the channel in any way. I was able to eventually convince him yes, and I said, okay, so I want to do a GM mode in SVR07. So I asked him what he wanted to do, Raw or SmackDown. He chose SmackDown, so I ended up doing Raw. And I wanted of episodes, and I was doing it in a way where I would treat Heat and Velocity as their own shows, and Heat would be the first episode, and then I'd go into Raw, and then I'd do an episode of Velocity, or no, I would do SmackDown and then Velocity, I think, because I think Velocity was always Saturday, right? Or something like that? I think so. I think it was Heat, Raw, SmackDown, Velocity is what I would do. And I would actually, like I said, treat Heat and Velocity like their own shows. Like their own little minor shows for their respective shows. I did like a week because, again, SR07's G mode is, one, broken when you're doing multiplayer, and two, I don't know. I've never been good about doing a series on a GM mode and actually continuing it and finishing it. So, yeah, it was doomed from the start. But one important thing to note, that the video where I did the draft for that multiplayer GM mode was, for the longest time, one of my biggest videos. People kept finding it, kept clicking on it, kept watching it. The views kept climbing and climbing and climbing. It was my first video to ever hit like 1,000 views, which, again, for being such a small channel, still really a small channel, was a huge thing, and I never understood why, and I tried to make a video where I talked about potentially trying to do like a GM mode thing again before they brought the mode back, and I would basically just create my own GM mode through the more recent games at the time, using like 2K19. But like that didn't go anywhere. It didn't get anywhere near the same response, even though I tried like kind of link the things together, and yeah, so I just didn't eventually do it. But yeah, that draft video did very well. It's not up on the channel anymore. I eventually did delete it just because I didn't want anything from that very short-lived, completely dead series to do anything or go anywhere. I kind of regret deleting it now because that is a part of history for me, but yeah, I did get rid of it. And then, funny enough, I wouldn't really do anything GM mode-wise again until when? I think we're into like the 2020s by that point, actually. So quite a few years later, when I was still living by myself, and I tried to bring back another GM mode in SVR08, and well, got a few episodes out and didn't do anything with it. Yeah. I know. And then that series is, dead at this point. Like, well, I mean, it's really dead at this point because, like, God, all the capture card issues and everything I have, yeah, that's very dead. But, regardless, that is that. And that'll be the last one that, from the original kind of like 3 GM modes, that'll be the last one that I did. But then Tyson and I also started one in 23, WWE 2K23, my GM. We started one there, got to our first pay-per-view, we did a draft, and then one big video going to the first pay-per-view. And even with a much shorter mode, that like the devs force you to have a much shorter mode playing it, trying to really wreck. Like, they want you to have a bunch of playthroughs, not just one long playthrough. Even with that, we still didn't finish one. That's more just because, again, the scheduling issues between Tyson and myself are so big that we just couldn't continue it anyway. And we were both, like, actually on camera, commentating, booking, and everything like that. So, yeah. That's more the issue there. Not me being lazy or unmotivated or whatever. So, yeah. But yeah, like, GM mode is a mode I do love a lot. Even if I don't really like the current games all that much, I still love GM mode. It's something that I would like to actually do a series and finish one on camera. I think that would be great. Will I ever do it? At this point, who knows? It's probably safe to vote no, but who knows? It could happen, maybe. But yeah, I love GM modes. That's the whole kind of thing I was trying to say there and ramble on about. But I have a very complicated history with it, especially when making content on it. I've never actually finished a GM mode series ever, despite starting quite a few over the years. But that's all I got. I can't really think of anything else to say. That was my history with GM mode. So, there's that. That was day 25 of the 10-year YouTube celebration. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you join me for whatever day 26 happens to be. And until next time, I'll see you later. Bye, guys.